Hello, and thank you so much for joining us again for Reading 100 Classics. The book I'm going to introduce today is Hope for the Flowers by Trina Paulus, and I have to say, for me personally, this is the book where my own love of reading really, truly began. It might look like a simple story for kids, but its message, well, it's one of the most profound you'll ever come across. So let's just dive right in with a question that gets to the absolute heart of this story. Have you ever felt like you're caught up in this frantic race? Just climbing and climbing, struggling to get ahead. But if you really stop to think about it, you're not even sure what the prize is, or why you're climbing in the first place. That exact feeling is where our story begins. So we meet our hero, a little guy named Stripe. He's a small striped caterpillar, and he's just hatched from his egg. He starts doing what caterpillars do, right? He just eats and grows and eats and grows. But pretty quickly, this feeling starts to creep in, this little bit of dissatisfaction. He feels this deep, nagging question bubbling up from inside him. And this quote is the engine for the entire story. Surely there is more to life than just eating and growing. It's that restlessness, that gut feeling that there has to be something more meaningful out there. And that's what pushes him to leave everything he knows and start a journey into the great unknown. So Stripe takes off, and before long he stumbles upon something that is both incredible and honestly kind of terrifying. It's this massive pillar that reaches way up into the clouds, and it's made entirely of other caterpillars. It's just a frantic, writhing mass of bodies all climbing over each other, desperately trying to get to a top that nobody can even see. This seems to be the only game in town, so he joins the climb. And this bit of dialogue just perfectly captures the whole mindset on the pillar. Stripe asks the other climbers, "Hey, what are we all trying to get to? What's the goal?" And the answer is always the same. Nobody knows. There's no time to think, there's only time to climb. The goal is just to get a little bit higher than the caterpillar next to you, even if you have to step on them to do it. But then, right in the middle of all this struggle and chaos, something really wonderful happens. Stripe meets Yellow, another caterpillar, and they connect. They actually talk to each other. For the first time, he feels something other than just raw ambition. And together, they make a pretty radical choice. They leave the climb and go back down to the ground. And the contrast between these two ways of life is it's night and day. Life on the pillar was this constant, cutthroat competition. But life on the ground, together, it was filled with simple joys. Eating, growing, just enjoying each other's company. It was a life of connection, not competition. A life built on love, not blind ambition. But it wasn't a perfect happily ever after, at least not for Stripe. That question, what's at the top, it just kept gnawing at him. He'd see that pillar in the distance and couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing out on the real prize. And so, in a truly heartbreaking moment, he leaves this beautiful life he built with Yellow to go back to the mindless upward struggle. Okay, so this decision leads us to the story's big climax. Stripe is climbing again, but this time with a kind of ruthless determination he never had before. He kicks and shoves and claws his way up, trampling countless others, with his eyes locked on that summit. And finally, after this exhausting, soul-crushing effort, he makes it. He reaches the very top. So what was there? After all of that sacrifice, what was the great reward that thousands upon thousands of caterpillars were giving up everything to find? He finds nothing, absolutely nothing, just a few other exhausted caterpillars, clinging on for dear life. And when he cries out in despair, another caterpillar just hisses this chilling line at him, "Quiet, you fool, we're at the place they all want to be." The only prize for getting to the top is being at the top, right before you're pushed off by the next wave of climbers. And I have to pause here. I have to tell you, the book's simple drawing of this exact moment is absolutely unforgettable. It's devastating. As Stripe looks out from the peak, he sees the sky is filled with, well, I can't spoil it. This is genuinely one of those things you have to experience by reading the book yourself. The visual reveal is just that powerful. It'll stick with you, I promise. But here's the thing. While Stripe was learning this incredibly hard lesson, Yellow was on a completely different journey. After being left alone, she felt lost too. But instead of looking up at the pillar, she eventually started looking inward. She meets an old caterpillar who tells her about a different way to reach the sky. And this path had nothing to do with climbing over others. It was all about transformation. It meant risking everything, letting go of that familiar struggle, and weaving a cocoon. which is a total act of faith, right? Trusting a process you can't even see. And after this quiet, internal struggle, a complete metamorphosis. She emerges as something the climbers could never even dream of becoming. A beautiful yellow butterfly flies to the top of that miserable pillar. It's yellow. She finds the broken, disillusioned stripe and shows him that the real way to fly isn't by climbing, it's by having the courage to change from the inside out. And she guides him back down where he can finally begin his own true transformation into the cocoon.
So that's the story, but Hope for the Flowers is so much more than just a fable. It's a really powerful allegory for how we choose to live our own lives. So let's break down some of the wisdom it offers us.
First off, it is pretty amazing to realize this book was published way back in 1972. I mean, for over half a century, its message has stayed so urgent and so relevant. It's inspired millions of people to take a hard look at their own lives and ask that crucial question: what pillar am I climbing? The author, Trina Paulus, actually wrote this book after she moved from a really peaceful, communal life to the hyper-competitive world of New York. For her, the pillar is a metaphor for a society that values success and status and getting ahead above absolutely everything else, often without anyone stopping to ask if the top is even a place worth getting to. So what are the big takeaways? What's the wisdom we get from all this? Well, first, that true growth requires the courage to just leave the crowd. Second, the most important journeys we take are usually internal, not external. It's the cocoon, not the pillar. Success isn't about reaching the top, it's about becoming who you are always meant to be. Love and connection are so much more fulfilling than blind ambition. And finally, there is hope for a better way, but you have to be willing to risk everything for it. And that brings us right back to that first question, doesn't it? The book leaves us with this final, powerful thought to mull over in our own lives. What's the pillar you're climbing? Maybe it's in your career, your social life, your ambitions. And maybe more importantly, what is the butterfly you're meant to become? If only you could find the courage to stop climbing and instead begin the real work of transformation. I'll be back next time with another insightful classic for you to explore. Until then, see you next time.